Hey guys, what's going on? Chris here again, back with another one of the type of videos that I did maybe just a week or so ago, about highlighting different albums that I think are I think I'm going to shorten the title, albums that are either overlooked or underappreciated, essentially, is how it's going to work. And bands that bands that I think deserve a little more spotlight, bands that bands or albums that deserve a little more spotlight, whether that mean albums that just aren't known, just aren't, because the band hasn't gotten their name out there yet or whatever it may be. Usually that's stuff I find on Bandcamp, a lot of startup projects, stuff like that. It's either going to be that or it's, maybe an album by a well-known band that kind of gets a bad rap, in my opinion, and I'm going to explain why I think it's something worth going back to listen to, why I feel like people might push it aside, what the reasons might be. Not so much of that today. Today is basically four bands that I have been listening to a lot lately and just kind of want to get the name out there. Not that I shouldn't say get the name out there, because all of these besides one of them are pretty well known in the metal community. It's just bands that if you haven't paid much attention to, or it just kind of like you've heard them in passing, like maybe it's worth to, stop for a minute and check some of these out. So essentially that's the deal. Like I said, everything on here but one of these bands are pretty established bands, so it's not like I'm gonna be breaking any ground here, but this is what I've been listening to, and I feel like more people should talk about it, essentially. So I think I'll start with this band is called Entrails, and this is more about the band than it is about this particular album. The album is World Inferno, but Entrails themselves are basically if Entombed had never strayed away from the sound on Left Hand Path. Basically, if they went forward in that direction completely instead of the weird death and roll type, and then just rock, radio rock type sound, whatever you want to call it, that they ultimately went into. The sound on Entrails albums kind of lean more towards the sound on, like, just talking about pure like the way the music is produced, I guess. It's a little more like Clandestine, where it's like really, it's not, I wouldn't call it lo-fi, but it's like especially buzzsaw sounding, like it's like like a higher pitch. I don't know. Can you tell I have no idea about, like, the behind the scenes of music and producing? I don't know the words and the fancy terms, but I don't know. Entombed's Left Hand Path and Clandestine have way different sound, but they're pretty close in spirit, if that makes sense. And so it's kind of more like Clandestine's sound and just the straight up death metal style that Left Hand Path is, if that makes any sense, if I just didn't confuse the fuck out of everybody. So this album is really good, and all their stuff is really good. Going into it, I wouldn't expect like anything like mind-blowing. Entrails is more like if you just have that urge to listen to more Entombed and you're sick of listening to their like one really good album, which isn't true for me. That's how a lot of people look at it. I kind of dig Entombed's later stuff a little bit, but of course nothing is Left Hand Path in my opinion. So if you kind of have that want and that desire to listen to something in that ilk, Entrails is a good band that just put on and kind of just, there's nothing special on it. There's nothing that's going to blow you away, but that's not a bad thing. Not every band has to be a 10 out of 10. Even though they are trying, obviously, I'm sure their best to write the best music possible. Not everything's going to be a 10 out of 10. There are albums that you put on and you're just like, this is really good. And you put it on the shelf for a little while, and you don't go back to it for a year or 2 or 6 months, whatever. That's what Entrails kind of is, and it's something I've been listening to lately. So it's something I wanted to get out there and be like, hey, this band exists. If you do know about them, great. Then you know that they're a decent band. Kind of bit of a ripoff, like all the way down to the. Can you stop? Sorry, it's my cat. All the way down to their logo, like it's just a complete copy, of Entombed's logo and the name Entrails. Like I'm sure it was meant to be. That it's just a couple letters off, like so one being stocked on your shelf or one being stocked at the music store in like a metal section. ENT Entombed right next to ENT Rails Entrails. I'm obviously I'm gonna assume that that was on purpose. But yeah, I would check them out if you don't know them. If you do know them, maybe go and dip your toe in in the water and see if it does anything for you. Like I said, if you have that itch, like I think that's the closest thing you're gonna find out there to just like it's basically a Entombed tribute band essentially. I don't want to disrespect the band, but it's essentially that's what it is to me. So if you're in the mood for Entombed and you're sick of listening to just Left Hand Path, which I don't know how you could be, but if you are, I would check out Entrails. The next thing I'm gonna show here is this band right here, Triptykon. I'm gonna make sure that there's something I have to like, I don't know, whatever, we'll just go for it, Triptykon. This album, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Eparistera Daemons. I don't know, dude. That's whatever those words are. I can't get it to focus. But yeah, this thing, if you're like me, and this will get me some hate, I'm sure, and you're of the mindset, and I was talking to my buddy about this the other day, Celtic Frost essentially has like one or two good albums. Like I don't get the love for them. I get this is probably purely because I wasn't there at the time when all this shit was coming out, but they do nothing for me. I don't know. I like their debut. I think everything after that's kind of blah. I think especially Into the Pandemonium frigging sucks. I can't stand that album. But everything up to Monotheist, which I think is by far in a way their best album, and I'm sure people are gonna be like, what the fuck? But I could pretty much take or leave Celtic Frost's entire discography. I could do without ever hearing it again besides Monotheist. This is basically part 2 of that. I haven't listened to their other albums as much, so I can't vouch for all of them. But this thing is really dark, really heavy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it besides Monotheist Part 2. I mean, it's literally if Celtic Frost, as the name, stayed together and just kept in that direction. Yeah, Triptykon. The album is awesome. I forgot how good it was. I was kind of a couple weeks ago looking for something to listen to. And I kind of just, I don't know if you guys use Discogs, I guess is just the name. But they have on the iPhone, you can shake it and it will bring you a random album, and that's what I did. That's how I picked that. And I've listened to it when I bought it, and I loved it, but I don't know, I must have been into something else at the time, or I don't know, just something about it didn't stick with me. I don't know what the case was, but it stuck with me this time, and I've been listening to it for weeks now. If that's something you haven't checked out in a while, I would go check it out. The third thing I've got is the one thing that I'm showing that isn't any kind of well-known band, and the band is called, it's another essentially like tribute band. This is basically Darkthrone, Under the Funeral Moon and Transylvanian Hunger, like that era, those particular sounds. It's basically just a tribute band for that, all the way down again to the logo. I guess if you're gonna take a band sound and just completely copycat it, I can appreciate the, copying of like the logo, just so there's no question, like it's not hiding it. Like I can respect that more than the band trying to sell their own sound, or their own logo as their own sound. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna assume this is a one-man project because when you open it up, there's only one guy. The one thing I will say, and it's something that I feel a lot with black metal, particularly, is that I'm almost like scared to show this because I'm gonna find out that this dude was some piece of shit Nazi, whatever, as happens in black metal. So if the guy is a piece of shit, fuck this. I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to get into that whole argument of separating art from artists, but so I don't know, and I didn't look it up, because if I did it with the one, I gotta do it with all of them. I'll just put it out there as is, and then educate me if whatever. I hate that I even have to do that. I hate that in 2022 there's bands still promoting those fucked up ideas of you know Nazism and whatever, racism and all that. Like, so I don't know, like it pisses me off I even have to say that. Like I don't support anything about that. I almost feel stupid having to say that because, like I said, it's 2022. But yeah, so if that's the case, whatever, fuck this album. But as it is, like I said, it's basically just Transylvanian Hunger worship. Oh, and I guess I never said the name. The name is Frozen Land by Hate Frost. I believe I found this on Bandcamp or something. But it's really good. It's, as is with a lot of those type of bands, like they kind of just like put too much into trying to sound like that lo-fi sound, so it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't have the spirit of like some of that old stuff. I don't know. I think you guys know what I mean, because I've heard other people talk about that forced lo-fi sound. It's almost like an instinct, like a feeling that you have, like when you just know that a band's just trying to mimic that sound, versus either just it naturally working or that's the way it was back then. But whatever. So that's Hate Frost, Frozen Land. The last thing I got is probably the thing I've had most in my CD player the last like month or so. And like I've gone through spurts with this album where I that's all I listened to for a while, and I never hear anybody talk about this. And I've seen it places, so I know it's not like some unknown thing, but I just feel like not enough people know about it. And this is Sorcery, Blood Chilling Tales. This thing is fucking awesome. This came out in 1991, I believe, and this thing is just your old school death metal. Like there's nothing about it fancy, nothing about it that's necessarily different. It's kind of like reminds me of early Deicide, or just that straight up Florida death metal stuff. Cannibal Corpse, not thrashy as like Cannibal was in the early days, not so much of that, but just that straight up death metal. For all I know, they could be from Florida. I honestly, I don't know anything about the band. I know I also haven't listened to anything by them besides this album. I'm pretty sure they have, I want to say like 3 or 4 other albums besides this. I was just looking to see if it says where they're from. I don't know. I don't see anything. But yeah, they are, like I said, I don't know why they didn't catch on a little more. I don't know if they broke up. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if, oh my God, stop it. Ripping up the rug. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was just a couple years too late, because a lot of that stuff had already been out and caught fire. The only thing that I would say that's probably different about this than I think other albums is that the guitars almost, they have like a warm, like fuzzy sound, like Sabbath type fuzz to them. I don't know. It's like a cool sound to hear in death metal, and it's not so noticeable when it's just like chugging and heavy riffs. but like there's parts of it where they really slow down and play a riff, and you can really tell that the guitars are kind of fuzzy, which is a different. I don't know if that's intentional or not, or if that's just the production, the equipment that they had. But yeah, this thing is riffs all day long, super heavy, caveman shit. I mean, probably my favorite songs, I don't know if I could really choose. Legacy of Blood is an easy one. Death is a really good one. Yeah, By These Words is another really good one. And then it comes with two single versions of a couple of Rivers of the Dead and The Rite of Sacrifice. I can't imagine those are ever released as a single, so I don't know why those are on there or what the difference is. I just will either start it at the beginning after those. I don't know. That kind of extra bonus track shit doesn't do it for me. Anyways, so those are the 4 albums that I am going to highlight today again. So it's Entrails, World Inferno, Triptychon with whatever the fuck you want to call that, Hate Frost, Frozen Lands, and Sorcery, Blood Chilling Tales. Like I said, if you don't know any of these, check them out right away. If you haven't, listened to them in a little bit of time and you know some of these, I'd say pop them back in and see how you like them. See if you remember them differently than you may have first. See if there's a reason why you put them aside. Yeah, and that's all I got for you. Until next time, I'll see you later.